Hey guys, Cloud here with a little build log chronicling my play. After putting it off for too long, I've finally acquired my 4th Ascendancy point. I decided to take Crushing Blow again with it because it seems to make a difference on maps with increased monster stun threshold. It also makes a noticeable difference in stunning bosses, or at least the ones that don't instantly fall over to your single target. I actually ran Ultimatum first, only to find out that the Trial Master was locked behind a door which you need 3 Ultimatum currency items to open. So I went and did the Trial of the Sakema. Unlike the Ultimatum mini-bosses, which are quite squishy, this boss is a real fight with a huge hit point bar and stun bar. So, not knowing what I could get away with, I played it very safe and mostly default attack, trying to dodge as much as possible to preserve my honor. It turns out that having an almost capped honor resistance, plus taking various defensive boons like monsters deal 20% less damage, dramatically reduces the damage you take. And between that and my now capped block chance, I probably could have face tanked a lot of the hits he was putting out and brought him down a lot faster. But taking so long with the fight was a good exercise in learning the mechanics. I did have the movement speed boon, which did absolutely make the boss fight, and all of the trial, much easier than it would have been without it. All in all, while the later stages of this fight feel very melee and friendly, I feel like this isn't a very bad fight for melee simply thanks to the low outgoing damage values, especially with our armor mitigation decreasing that even further. I do think this fight has shown that I need to put some more focus on single target, as I assume there will be other Pinnacle bosses of similar tankiness. A lot of people have suggested or asked about Sunder, and while I think that could probably be a very viable build, it'll look somewhat different from mine since you need to drop Resolute Technique to allow for critting, and then you need to redo the gear for accuracy, and then you'd also need to take those increased armor break nodes once again in order to armor break rares and bosses. Though on that note, folks have mentioned various sorts of weapon swap tech and use of the secondary weapon passive trait, which I think is a very good idea for separately boosting clear and single target. But that would also require the acquisition of a second Giga-Jetted hammer, and they're starting to get a bit expensive. Well, it turns out the trial is getting nerfed in a near future patch, so if you're looking for your 4th Ascendancy point and want an easier time of it, you might want to wait for that. Speaking of which, it looks like we dodged the nerf pat. There's no mention of Armour Explosion in the press release. Well, I suppose that's not certain until we see the actual patch notes. Fingers crossed. By the way, a leveling guide for the build has been hotly requested, so I'm going to see if I can put out a quick overview on pathing and ideal leveling skills. In the meantime, the simple answer to leveling is to use Bone Shatter and Perfect Strike for most of the campaign. You can check out my 90-second mini-guides to those skills in the description. By the way, in this fight, it might be worth paying attention to how I use Stampede for movement. I've heard some comments about Stampede being clunky or bad because of its stopping when you run into mobs, but I don't feel that way at all. I find it quite sublime, actually. But it is definitely important that you exercise proper control over your Stampedes. You pretty much always want to run alongside targets rather than into them. You also almost always want to be roll cancelling out of the end of your Stampedes, or even before leaping for the slam during clear. Also, if you weren't aware, you can curve your Stampedes if you hold down the button. It isn't strictly a straight line skill. With all that said, I'll let the rest of the fight play out now for anyone who wants to watch how it goes. Until next time, Exiles.
You are not in control. There can be no escape. Return to nothing. Time distorts. You are not in control. This changes nothing.
I'm not ready. Miss!
Rid yourself of your delusions. Back you flow. You are not in control. There can be no escape. Time unwinds. Wither into nothing.
I need more time.
This only ends one way.
No mana.
Time flows in eternity. Eternity awaits you. This cannot be. It is not my time.